So in today's tutorial, we're going to draw a dress block. So if you look at the dress block handout JPEG, you're going to see the dress that we will draw. It's going to have buttons, set-in sleeve, welt pockets, and then on the side of the handout you can see the diagram, so you can refer to it and see where the points are going to be added as we draw. So C stands for corner points, S stands for smooth points, and then here's the sleeve diagram. Again, C stands for corner points, S stands for smooth points, and at the bottom you can see the back view with the princess seams, and here you can see the align palette, which we're going to use to distribute and align the buttons. Before we begin, I just want to show you the t-shirt that we did earlier using the Robin Schneider textbook technique. So if you look at the t-shirt, you have noticed that the t-shirt is made up of several parts that were closed shapes, which we filled in with color. So when you put those shapes together, you get the t-shirt shape. So that is one way of doing your technical drawing. But today I'm going to show you another way. In this method, we're going to draw everything with no fill. Nothing will be filled, and nothing will necessarily be a closed shape, as you will see once we start drawing. To be able to color it in, we're going to use live paint technique, and you can use the Robin Schneider technique with closed shapes, or you can use the technique I'm going to show you now, which in my personal view is perhaps a little bit faster and easier to do, but in order to color the shapes you would have to use live paint. Okay, so let's get going. So first I'm going to start a new file. So File, New, I will click on Print, I will click on Letter Size, and then I will click on Create. As usual, you're going to place your Judy. So you're going to select File, Place. You will scroll down to find your Judy. Once you found the JPEG, you're going to click on it once. You're going to turn on the template, and you're going to click on Place. As you do that, the Judy template is locked and a new layer is created on top. So I'm going to double click on the template name and I'm going to call it Judy. I'm going to double click on the layer 1 text and I'm going to rename it as Dress Front. So in this layer I'm going to draw the dress front. As you draw, you can refer to the diagram if you wish. So let's begin. So the first point you will do is a corner point at the neck. However, before we go, let's select no fill so that we can see the Judy template as we draw. Black stroke and 1 point line thickness. So let's begin with the corner neck point. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see better. And then as I move along, I'm going to press space bar so I can temporarily switch to the hand tool, which will allow me to move the artboard as I draw. So I'm going to click on the pen tool and I'm going to click once to set my corner point on the neck shoulder area. My second point will be just before the edge of the shoulder on the Judy, so I will click there once to create another corner point. Next I'm going to create a smooth point. So this smooth point is going to be somewhere in the middle of the armhole but just a little bit lower. So I'm going to click and drag in order to create a smooth point. You can press shift to constrain handles if you want, and just drag for a very short amount like that. My next point is going to be a corner point under her armpit. Now next point is going to be a smooth point on her waist. However, I'm going to press space bar, which will allow me to just temporarily switch to the hand tool. And now I'm back using my pen tool again. So now I'm going to click and drag at the waist level in order to create a curve. I can press Shift, and again, don't drag very long, just a little bit like this. My next point is going to be on the hip. So at the hip level, I'm going to click and drag and angle my directional handles so that I can have a nice curve. So have a look at your preview and don't let go of your dragging until you're happy with a curve preview. Next, I'm going to put a point at the hemline, but I'm going to press Shift because I want it to be in line with the previous point, so the line will be straight. So here's the knee level, and now I'm going to press Shift, and that is finished for the side seam and the armhole and the shoulder. So now let's review what we did. So if you click on the line with the white arrow, you can see where we put the points. So we put point 1 on the shoulder, point 2 on the shoulder armhole area, point 3 a little bit lower than the middle of the armhole, point 4 is the armpit, point 5 is the waist, point 6 is the hip, and finally the last point is for your hemline. So make sure that you do not have more points than what I showed you, because if you have more than this, then it's going to be harder for you to fix your lines. It'll be harder for you to get a nice shape, and it'll be also more time consuming. And finally, it'll be much more difficult to change it in case if you want to modify the line. So in terms of the points, we've got corner point everywhere. So the only place where we have a smooth point is the middle of the armpit, the waist, and the hip. So far you only have 3 curved points. So that's really it for your side seam. If you turn off the visibility of the Judy, you can see better what your line looks like, and you can decide if you like it or if you want to modify it. So in my case, I think it's pretty good. I may want to drag this handle out a little bit more, just so that I can scoop out my armholes. So what I'll do is I'll click on the point so I can see where the handles are, and then I'm just going to scoop out the armhole a little bit more and perhaps just move it in a little bit more. So now I'm happy. In terms of the hip, I think it's pretty good, but I think I could just have a little bit more of a gentle curve above. So now I've fixed that line as well. So again, you don't have to redraw it if you make a mistake, but instead you can use the white arrow to move the points and to move the directional handles until you're happy with the line. Next, we're going to start working on the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'm going to follow the diagram on the handout. So the sleeve is going to be consisting of corner points, but there will be one smooth point on the sleeve head area. So let's begin. So select the pen tool, click once at the shoulder armhole point, then you're going to move out a little bit and then click and drag ever so slightly with the handles being pretty diagonal, and then I will get a curved point there. Next, I'm just going to draw corner points for the hem, click, click, and connecting here, click. So basically this isn't a closed shape, as you can see. However, it doesn't have to be closed shape because I'm going to use live paint in order to color it in. Now, if you look at your sleeve, you will have corner points everywhere. The only curved point that I have is the one that I created in the sleeve cap. So when you're drawing the sleeve cap, make sure that it's not bulging too much and make sure it's not too flat. So what I did is I clicked and dragged to get a curved point here, but I clicked and dragged for a very short amount, so I got a very soft, nice curve. If you created a curve there and you don't like it, then you can just move the smooth point, or you can play around with the directional handles in order to correct the curve. Next, before I copy everything to the other side, I'm first going to work on the dart and also the pocket, and then we will be able to copy everything to the other side. So I'm going to create a dart using the pen tool. So for my dart, I'm going to have a corner point just below her nipple, or the bus point. So I will click there to create a corner point. Then I'm going to click and drag in the waist area just a little bit to get a very soft curve. But notice I'm just keeping my handles pretty straight and dragging for a very short amount of time. And then I will keep going down to this level around here, and then I will click. So that's my dart. So what I did is I created a corner point on top and on the bottom, and I have created a very soft, smooth point at the waist. So again, you shouldn't have more than 3 points when you draw this dart. So next thing, I'm going to draw the pocket. So for the pocket, I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and then I'm going to first make it straight, and then I'll just re-angle it later. So I will click and drag and refer to my handout to make sure I don't draw the pocket too big or too small. When I'm happy, I can let go. And then I have to re-angle it. So according to the handout, the pocket is slightly slanted, and then it's touching the bottom of the dart, so I'm going to move it over there. So there you go, that's done. So simply just do a rectangle, rotate it, and move it up. So now I'm actually ready to reflect this sketch to the other side. I'm just going to have a look and see if I like the proportions. So far it looks good. So I'm going to use the black arrow to click and drag a selection marquee around everything that I've drawn so far. And now I'm going to reflect it. So to do that, I'm going to click once on the reflect tool. I will press Alt-Option key down and keep it pressed. And then I will click on the center front line of the Judy. This will set the reflection point. I will select vertical from the dialog box that pops up. I will then click on copy, and here I have the other side done. So what we're going to do now is connect the hem and also connect the neckline. So as you know from before, the fastest way to select the 2 points is to use the white arrow and then click and drag around the bottom 2 hemline points using the white arrow. So this creates a selection marquee, and then I can just hit Ctrl J or right click join to connect those 2 points. So that's done. I'm going to do the same thing on the neckline. So using the white arrow, I click and drag around the 2 points. Only those 2 points are selected, and only those 2 points are black. The other points are not black because they're not selected. And now I can go to right click join, or I can just hit Command J. Next, I have to curve this neckline a little bit. So we're going to use the reshape tool to do that. So remember, to display your reshape tool, you have to go and tear off the scale menu. So I've done that already. So I'm going to now use the white arrow. I'll click on my line, and then I'm going to use the reshape tool to click and drag on the neckline. So I'm holding my mouse pressed down as I clicked and drag. And then I can let go once my neckline is low enough. So now I can let go. So this reshapes my neckline. Next, I'm going to drag out each directional handle in order to scoop out my neckline. So I'm going to press Shift, and then I will drag this handle with the white arrow, and then I will drag this handle out with the white arrow. So now I'm able to have a neckline that's a little bit more scooped out. Next, I'm going to select the neckline using the white arrow and by clicking on the point in the middle. Then I can just go to Ctrl C, Ctrl F, and then using the arrow key, I will be able to select that new point that I drew, and then using the arrow key I can bring the neckline up. So I've just got that 1 point selected, and this allows me to bring the neckline up. Another way to create the back neck is to just simply draw a totally straight line using the Shift key and the line segment tool. So you click and drag with the line segment tool and you create a totally straight line. Next step would be to select this new line with the white arrow and then use the reshape tool to click and drag in the middle of the line, which will reshape it. And then once you're happy with the preview, you let go of your click and drag, and then the line will be reshaped. Our next step is going to be to add a center front line. So the center front line will actually not be in the middle, following the center line of the Judy, but it'll be off to the side a little bit to allow for the button extension and to allow for the buttons. So first we are going to use the line segment tool, and then a little bit off to the side we're going to start to click and drag with the line segment tool going down. So keep your mouse pressed, click and drag going down, and then you press shift in order to constrain the line to be straight. So there we have our center closure line, and it's a little bit off to the side. So our button will actually be in the middle, and then our line for the closure will be a little bit off to the side. So our next step will be to create buttons and buttonholes. To create buttons and buttonholes, we're going to do the same thing as what we did for the low-waisted skirt. We're going to really zoom in here and then use the oval tool. Here we go, the oval tool, and then using white fill and 0.5 stroke, I'm going to create a button and press shift as I use the oval tool. So I press shift, I click and drag, and here is my button. I will use the guideline to make sure that the center of the button is lined up with the center front of the Judy. Then I will zoom in and zoom out and see if I think my button is perhaps too small. It is a little bit too small. So before I copy and paste to create more buttons, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. So using the arrow key, black arrow key, I will select the button and then click and drag to make it a little bit bigger, and again make sure that the button is in the center. So I press shift and I drag the selection marquee bounding box to make it a little bit bigger. Next, I'm going to create my buttonhole using the rectangle tool. So using the rectangle tool, I'm going to click and drag and create a rectangle which needs to be lined up with the button center. So again, I'm going to use the smart guides to make sure that they line up. So there we go, the buttonhole is matching the center of the button. So my last step will be to select this button and then go to right click, arrange, and then select bring to front. So this will put my button on top of the buttonhole, and now I can group them together. It's very, very, very important that you group them together at this point, because if you don't, it's not going to work later on, and you'll see why. So now I can zoom out and see if I like the size and the placement of the first button. So this looks pretty good. I could probably just move it up a tiny bit. So remember to make sure that the center of the button lines up with the center front on the Judy, and then the actual edge is a little bit on the side. The next thing I will do is I will create extra buttons. So I'm going to use the Alt-Option key and black arrow in order to create extra buttons to duplicate the original that I drew. So to do that, step one, use the black arrow to select the button in the buttonhole group. Then you press Alt-Option key, and then you can drag to make multiple copies. So I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 extra buttons. So again, press Alt-Option, and then using black arrow, I'm going to make 4 more. And I'll just drop them off here as I go. So altogether I should have 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's perfect. Then next step will be placing the very bottom button at the level where it needs to be. So you refer to your sketch to get the proportion right, or you refer to your original garment. In this case, it's a sketch. So I can see that my button really should be here. So the bottom button should be somewhere around here. So now I'm going to use the computer to align and to redistribute all of my buttons, because to do it by eye would not work very well. So I'm going to get the computer to do it for me. So in order to make that work, you have to go to Window, Align, to display the Align palettes. So Window, Align is going to give you this palette. So you're going to use 2 buttons to distribute and align your buttons. So you're going to be using this one, which is Horizontal Align Center. And then you're going to use this one, which is the Vertical Distribute Center. So this one's going to distribute them, and this one's going to align them. Before you can use these 2 buttons, you first have to select all the buttons. Again, so before you can use these 2 functions, you first have to select all of the buttons. So using the black arrow, I'm going to just click and drag around all these buttons, and they all get selected. So then all you have to do is click once on Horizontal Align Center. So you see they all aligned, and then click once on the Vertical Distribute Center. So now you see they all automatically distribute. So again, you're going to go to Window Align to display this palette, and then you're going to click on this button and this button in order to center and distribute your buttons. So that's really all we have to do for the front view. So at this point, I'm just going to grab everything with the black arrow. So using the black arrow, I'm going to click and drag to select the entire pieces, using the click and drag with the black arrow to create a marquee selection. And then I'm going to group it first, and then I'm going to make a copy. So you are going to go to Edit Copy to create a copy. And okay, after you made a copy of your front view, then you can create a new layer, call it Back, and then you're going to turn off the visibility of the front layer and lock it just to be safe. And then with the back layer being active, you're going to go to Edit Paste in Front. So it'll put it exactly on top of the Judy. So now I'm going to ungroup this sketch, and then I will be able to use the black arrow to select and delete all of the parts that I don't need to keep. Now I'm going to zoom in and use the white arrow to select the middle point of the front neck, and then you will hit delete once to get rid of it. And now all I have to do is create the princess scene. So I am currently in the back layer, so I will continue drawing in the back layer because this is my back view. So for the princess scene, you're going to start with the corner point. So you're going to put a corner point somewhere in the middle of the armhole, around here. Then you're going to move down a little bit, and then you're going to click and drag for a short amount, and the handles are going to follow the the handles are going to follow the dashed lines or on the Judy's body, the princess scene. And then you're going to put another curved point at the waist. This time you're going to keep the handles pretty straight and then drag for a very short amount. And then you're going to put a curved point on the hip, so you're going to click and drag going down. And again, the directional handles are following the shape, the dashed line indicated on the Judy's body. And then to finish, I'm just going to click once, and then this is my princess scene. Now I'm going to just review what we did. So we created a curved point here on the waist and the hip, and then our first and the last point were corner points. So now I'm happy with this, and I will select it with the black arrow, click once on the reflect tool, press Alt Option key and keep it pressed down, click on the center front line, click on vertical, click on copy, and now I'm finished with the back view. You may want to use the arrow key and the black arrow in case if you need to move it over a tiny bit. And now I can zoom out and just group everything together. So using the black arrow, I'm just going to create a marquee selection around it with a black arrow, and then I'm going to go to right-click Group. So here's my back view, and then I've got the front view in a separate layer. So next, I'm going to unlock both layers, and then I will just move the back view down and the top view on top, so I can fit both of them on the same page. At this point, you can also turn off the visibility of your Judy. So now I have the front and I have the back. So now I'm going to create a copy of the front and the back. So using the black arrow, I'm going to select both of the pieces by clicking and dragging to create a selection marquee, and then I will go to Edit Copy. After you have copied those pieces, you can lock the back and the front layer, and then you can create a new layer which will be called Live Paint. So to avoid confusion, I'm going to turn off the view of the back and the front, and then with the Live Paint layer active, I'm going to go to Edit Paste. So here are the pieces which I'm going to be coloring in, which are in the Live Paint layer. So to do that, step 1, you select the front view with the black arrow, make sure sleeve and everything is included, and then you go to Object, Live Paint, Make. The bounding box changes right away, indicating that you have created a Live Paint group. Now I have to do the same thing with the back, so I will go a little bit further out, use the black arrow, click and drag a selection box around it, and then go to Object, Live Paint, Make. So now I can use the Live Paint bucket to color in these drawings. So I'm going to zoom in, select, let's say yellow from the drop-down menu, and then I will click on the Live Paint bucket. Remember, the Live Paint bucket is right after the Shape Builder tool. So I click on the Live Paint bucket, and then when I put my mouse on top of each piece, it highlights in red, and then I can click to add the color. I can use a different color if I want for the back neck, or for the pockets, or the buttons. For the buttons, I'm going to have to really zoom in, and then using the Live Paint bucket, I'm going to click the color inside of the button and the buttonhole. As I have to move the artboard, I'm going to press the space bar so I can temporarily switch to the hand tool, and then I will be back using my bucket once I let go of the space bar. Again, you're going to press the space bar, it's going to turn into a hand, and then you can click the color inside of the buttons. For the back, you can use whatever color you want, so let's do something different. So I will click the color inside, and then I will be finished with the drawing. So that's it for today's tutorial. And now you have a layer for the Live Paint, a layer for back, a layer for front. So if you want to print the front and the back non-colored, you can turn the visibility on. And then when you're printing the Live Paint layer, you're going to turn on the visibility of the Live Paint layer, and then you can print the Live Paint separately.